All right. Loneliness, Ted. That's the bottom line. Christmas, what was it for you? For me, it was a living hell. You know what it's like to fall in the mud and get kicked in the head with an iron boot? Oh, of course you don't. Nobody does. It never happens. It's a stupid question. Forget that. Loneliness, Ted. That's the bottom line. You know, Ted became TED Talks, and they were famous for a while. I don't know if they're still a thing or not, but TED stood for, you know what it stood for? Why do they call them TED Talks? It was technology, engineering, and I think design, sorry. Technology, education, and design. I try to rely on my memory the best I can because it's really pretty good, but something happens as the hard drive gets older and older. But anyway, this is Jeremiah Gunn Show. Welcome aboard. Thank you so much for listening. And this is called Loneliness, Ted. Loneliness, Part 2. I'm having technical difficulties, and I got to get it resolved. I would like to play some gorgeous music for you. But I'll just have to read you the lyrics for now until we get that fixed. So thanks for bearing with us. Well, technical difficulties here. I'm a professional amateur and an amateur professional. This is Jeremiah Gunn Show. We're broadcasting behind enemy lines in the Confederate States of America, which were Democrat states of America, blue no matter who. In the name of democracy, they have created the tyranny of the majority, I guess. But a lot of times it's a fake majority. They used to talk about the silent majority. And if it was a majority, why was it silent? That's the problem. That's what we're talking about. So we're talking about the loneliness. It's an epidemic. So here's some beautiful lyrics from some beautiful music. This is for all the lonely people, thinking that life has passed them by. Don't give up until you drink from the silver cup and ride that highway in the sky. This is for all the single people, thinking that love has left them dry. Don't give up until you drink from the silver cup. You never know until you try. I'm on my way. Yes, I'm back to stay. I'm on my way back home. This is for all the lonely people, thinking that life has passed them by. Don't give up till you drink from the silver cup. Never take you down, never give you up. Never know until you try. Interesting, that is a song by a group called America. And America is having a loneliness epidemic that the world is having as well. And we used to lead the world. We used to say, as California goes, so goes the nation. And that's true of America. All the world is watching America, and all of America is watching TV. God forbid The View or one of these other Bachelor, whatever, blah, blah, bread and circuses. So this program's dedicated to Charlie Kirk, who was not lonely because he got things in the right order in his life, and he had a purpose, and he had a vision. He had something to live for, which is one of the key ingredients that's missing. So why are we doing this? Why are we doing this right now? Let's see how that gain stuff does, and whether we're doing okay. Okay. Why are we doing this? Because nobody else is. Nobody else is. I just saw a thing the other day of Victor Davis Hanson talking about what the hell went wrong with Joe Rogan, Nick Fuentes, Kelly. I think it was Kelly he had on there. Tucker Carlson. You know, trying to. I don't know if with his attitude, I don't know why they let Tucker Carlson speak at Charlie Kirk's memorial. It doesn't nothing makes any sense. I don't know anything about Nick Fuentes, but I just know, men, you can't just follow anybody out there. The very best of the best. Victor Davis Hanson is really great, and he can tell you, and we're going to lose him soon because he's old, approaching 80. But he's going to tell you the truth. But nobody's telling you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They're coming close. But that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give an antidote not a vax or an inoculation, but it is, if you're young enough, serves the same purpose, to the woke mind virus that's killing us. It's just killing us. So I'm going to start off with a couple of quotes here as we talk about loneliness, part 2. And let me pull those up here because there's no way I could remember these verbatim. But as I said, the truth is the antidote to the lies, the woke mind virus. Mark Twain was a truth teller. He was brilliant. He said, "The truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie." None. So he also said, I think it was him that said that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth even puts its boots on. So we need boots on the ground. We don't worry about them across the pond. We don't need to worry about them halfway across the world. We need to worry about them right here. You're a soldier. You're a soldier in the army of the Republic of the United States of America. So this is what, when you got to listen to your fathers, not your mothers. Yeah, they whine and gritch and bitch about the matriarchy. I mean the patriarchy, but does the matriarchy, has that been good? How's that working for you? So one of the greats, one of the founders of the Tea Party, the original Tea Party, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, the Sons of Liberty. They said, "Let us contemplate our forefathers and posterity, and resolve to maintain the rights bequeathed to us from the former for the sake of the latter." These guys are so eloquent. What he's talking about is our forefathers. Bequeathed means they willed it to us in their last will, in their covenant. And they talked a lot about posterity. So that's who's coming after you, your children, your grandchildren. If you don't have any, if you don't want to have any, it doesn't mean you can ruin it for everybody else. So let's start over. Let us contemplate our forefathers and posterity and resolve to maintain the rights bequeathed to us from the former for the sake of the latter. The necessity of the time, more than ever, and it's true now, just as it was back then, 1776. The necessity of the times, more than ever, calls for our utmost circumspection, deliberation, fortitude, and perseverance. Let us remember that if we suffer tamely a lawless attack upon our liberty, we encourage it and involve others in our doom. It is a very serious consideration that millions yet unborn, there's that word again. Oh, man, they used that word? How visionary were these guys? You know, they said that Ben Franklin sat down in the barely 1800, if that, and with a feather quill dipped in ink, he calculated what our population would be in the year 1900 or something. And he got really close, decimal points close, and like 2% or something. These guys were brilliant. Your fathers, and the daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, they supported these guys, just like their wives and daughters supported them. They could have done it without them, but they didn't want to. So I'm just going to read it all the way through. It's so good. Let us contemplate our forefathers and posterity. That's who's behind you and who's in front of you. Let us contemplate our forefathers and posterity and resolve to maintain the rights bequeathed to us from the former for the sake of the latter. The necessity of the times, more than ever, calls for our utmost circumspection, deliberation, and fortitude and perseverance. Let us remember that if we suffer tamely a lawless attack upon our liberty, we encourage it and involve others in our doom. It is a very serious consideration that millions yet unborn may be the miserable sharers of the event. So we're in this together. What we do, Socrates said, I think, what we teach to children, we do to society. So, let's talk about. I want to encourage you. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Act like men. Act like men. Now, this podcast is intended for the separation of church and state. It's the people in the United States, whether they believe in a higher power or not. But you know, whether they believe in it or not, it's still all of the things surrounding the Constitution and everything apply to you. And one of the things that those founding fathers believed when they said things like "no king but Jesus" and things like that. I'm not going to pretend that they were Zoroastrian or Melanesian frog worshippers or anything else, or atheists, which are really parasites. No offense, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, it says act like men, like Sam Adams is saying. He didn't quote any wisdom literature. He didn't quote any scripture. It was a known thing. The first law of troubleshooting is find a known good. They had it. They had that anchor. They had that belief system and all the lies that have followed. So anyway, number one, don't be afraid. You got to fight. Don't be afraid. No coward can ever fight this. See the truth. See the real story. Face the truth. Diagnose the problem. Own it. Yeah, own it. They talk about you got to own it. I was watching a clip of the Dodger game. Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He was has a very common last name. The same name of the admiral who oversaw the attack on Pearl Harbor and everything. He went to Harvard, just like other enemies of our country. Anyway, Yamamoto throws the third pitch, and hits it out. Lindor of the Mets hits it out of the park, and he looks at the catcher and he pats his chest. He doesn't really speak English. He said, "That's me. I own that one. I left that hanging for him." Then he went on to pitch a miraculous game. It was just incredible. Just incredible. Anyway, own it. There's this fantastic series on HBO that was made. My kids bought it for me on DVD, and it was called John Adams. It's absolutely brilliant. It was brilliantly conceived and flawlessly executed. It was based on the book by David McCullough on John Adams. And there's another book. Other books I've read are called, like, say, the Adams Family, things like that. Kind of funny. Big family in America's founding. So, but anyway, there's this great scene where Jefferson is talking to Adams and Franklin. Franklin and Jefferson were on the committee to develop the Declaration of Independence. Most of it fell to Jefferson. So it was Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, a guy named Livingston, and a guy from Sherman, named from Connecticut. But anyway, they're talking about slavery. What do they do about it? What are we going to do about slavery if we're building a country out of these 13 colonies? And they kind of asked Jefferson, hey, you can't, it's brilliant. It's brilliant what you wrote here. But what about slavery? What do you think? And he said, Jefferson says, well, I own that I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what's going to fix it. I own that. So all of that just to say own the problem. So let's recap. Don't be afraid. Act like men. Don't act like women. Don't act like what women told you a man is. That's one of the things that Marxism does, is it destroys with lies. At first it divides and conquers. It messes up all the divisions, all the boundaries, so it can create its own. If men are women and women are men, kind of like, it's like a form of nihilism. It's like it doesn't matter. It's like nothing matters. If nothing matters, boom, you won. You took over without firing a shot. So don't be afraid. Act like men. See the real story. See the truth. See through the lies. Face the truth. Diagnose the problem. Own it. And kill the gaslighting. Be a man. Be a man. Okay? The surest way for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. The surest way for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. T.S. Eliot wrote this great poem, "The world will end not with a bang, but with a whimper." Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Don't be a wimp. Don't be a wimp. Be a man. And dogs are barking. I don't know if it's picking up or not, probably. Someone has breached the perimeter of the compound behind enemy lines where I'm broadcasting to the resistance. I've got to go check. We'll dispatch that threat. Anyway, you didn't know your enemy. Know who your enemy is. It's not women. It's not women, but way too many of them are women. And it's the war on men that they got involved with, whether they know it or not, whether they care or not, doesn't change the fact. But you gotta ditch, and you didn't break this. You created this, men. You created the greatest civilization in the history of the world. And well, if you would have let women be involved, they would have created. I don't know. I don't know. That's not what Socrates said. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the facts. Facts are stubborn things. This is not anti-women. Women will benefit by men being men. They suffer when men aren't men. Wisdom literature says when you have a prince that's really horrible, when you have a leader that's really horrible, the whole nation suffers. I mean, does that kind of need to be pointed out? Gas and nuisance, Biden, Obama, Harris, Adam Schiff, Tampon Tim. I mean, Cuomo, Mom Dummy. I mean, this is anyway. Let's get this thing figured out. Okay, so you got to. There was this woman that called up a talk show, a psychology help, philosophy help, and she was talking about all her struggles with her daughter. And she said she kind of had an epiphany and had a moment of clarity where it finally came together. What's that called? Epiphany. And then the other thing is called cathartic. Anyway, she just realized, hey, I didn't break her and I can't fix her. So men, you didn't. Look at these attacks. Have you ever seen a cat and a dog's chasing a cat and the cat just turns around and looks at it like, what do you want? And the dog stops and looks around like, where's line? Where's my script? What do I do now? You got to do that. You got to face down this enemy that's trying to bury you. And you got to ditch and bury the guilt. You don't have any guilt. You don't have any guilt. There's no reason. There's no reason to have white guilt, male guilt, man guilt. No kind of guilt, unless you're guilty. But we'll talk about that. But you did build this. Women like Pocahontas and Oblabla and Kimmy Kimmel, they can be damned. You did build this. Your fathers built this. Their fathers built this. Just like the NBA built the WNBA. But instead of gratitude, they wear T-shirts that say, pay us what you owe us. You know what? Be careful what you ask for. You might get it. You wear a shirt that says, pay us what we're worth or something. Women don't make as much as the men, and it's all this WNBA. And they try to act all badass. You see them, and they got the tats, and they don't have any muscles, but they're just posing and strutting and shoving their chest out and trying to act like a man. Oh, you're a man? You're a man? The NBA doesn't know what to do. The WNBA, they don't know what to do. They were talking about once experimenting with skimpy outfits. It turns out that was an attraction to women in the formation of the NBA. That some women like to look at the guys wearing small, tight clothes, and so they thought about doing that with women. And then they kind of realized that the primary audience they have is lesbian. One of the great players, early players, was really a great player, and she was a believer in Judeo-Christian, and she said, I got to get out of here. They're all lesbians and they hate me. They hate me without a cause, you know. And instead of being a team, instead of being sisters, they have to strut. You know, I I, I don't. What do I want to see you acting like you're Dennis Rodman or some other bad boy Birdman or whatever from back in the day, or whoever's the thug today? And you really? You think you're a badass? You think I want to watch a woman trying to be a man? And like Dave Chappelle, he did a whole riff on this thing. And he's not that smart, but he laid it out. He said, you know, if you were as good as the men and were able to earn what they earn, you'd have there wouldn't be an NBA. There'd only be an NBA. And I always wondered why not anyway? Why not? Well, you get all these stupid threats like, you know, like the women's USA soccer team. We're as good as men. And so they go play a 15 and under league of boys and get slaughtered. They play a professional or semi-professional team and get crushed. So I'm like Dave Chappelle said, here's a thought, you know, take LeBron James into the WNBA and let him get 700 points a game. Or, and this might be controversial, but shut the F up. You could shut the F up. Bill Burr does a whole thing on this. He says, come on, you ladies, you're gritching about that the WNBA doesn't get the respect, doesn't get the money. He says, why don't you yell out your 3 favorite players? Okay, your 2 favorite players. Okay, 1. You're not going to support it, but you want to garnish the wages of other. The WNBA wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the NBA pumping all their money into it, like it's a charity. So don't sit there, wear a T-shirt that says "Pay us what you owe us." Why don't you earn in ticket sales, like the NBA did? Anyway, that's enough about that. But it's about the lie. Stop believing these silly, goofy lies. Like California passed a law that, you know, if 51% of the people in California are women, and 51% of every board has to be women. You know, I mean, stupid Archie Bunker shot that down in the 70s. Somebody was arguing that, you know, 12% of the neighborhood ought to be black or something. All these stupid math they came up with. And Archie Bunker said, well, then, you know, 88% of the Harlem Globetrotters ought to be white. How come the NBA doesn't reflect? How come the NBA doesn't have only 12%, or the WNBA, or the NFL, or the MLB? How come it's not only 12 or 13%, whatever their pro rata share? You want to do it on one way and then do it on the other, and they sell this lie that, well, it's because they were kept back. You don't that kind of math doesn't work. We covered that last time. If you get pulled over by a cop for going through a stop sign, you can't say, well, I'll stop at the next one twice. It don't work that way. You can't punish people who did nothing to people who didn't suffer. Anyway, so it's just like that. You know, instead of gratitude, the WNBA has an attitude. There's a big difference. So what are the issues? You know, they've been, you know, they started all this stuff with Title IX, where they started saying, if we can't have a team, you can't have a team. Why don't you just try out for the men's team and put the whole thing to bed? They were actually killing teams in high school and college. They were canceling men's programs because the women's program didn't have one. Well, what if the women's program didn't want one? Just like Lego found out, which is a private sector company, they found out that girls don't want Legos all that much. They tried and tried. They got no dog in the fight. They just want to sell product. But you come along with social engineers and lie about this stuff. What was Title IX? And then now, after suffering through all of that Title IX stuff, now men are playing women in sports. They don't. That's how you know whether you can trust somebody or not. Are they going to say something that's bat-caca crazy tomorrow or a month from tomorrow? when they were making you miserable on the other end of the spectrum last month, last time of the month. So don't trust the men that are women or the women that are women. Don't trust the feminine mystique. So we're going to talk about history, kind of the history of loneliness. Now, the wisdom literature in the beginning, it says a famous quote, maybe you can complete it. It's not good that man should be alone. It's not good that man should be alone. He created a helper for man, a perfect soulmate, a mate to procreate and to work together, to be a yin and yang. And you got to get that, you got to get this thing correct in order. There's a lot of talk right now about, whether it's surrounding the Department of War, the Department of Defense, the manosphere, all these people that are commenting on what a toxic masculinity, whatever the stuff. But there's this order that's appropriate. I'll just give you 3 words. I'll give them alphabetically: country, family, God. Is alphabetically the right order? No. It could be God, country, family. It could be. It could be God, country, family. But God's got to go first. And if you're a secular person, God don't have to go first. Well, then what are you going to claim? What are you going to claim in the Constitution that put God first? Absolutely first. No Bill of Rights, no Constitution. No Constitution, no country. So, you don't worry, secular, unbelieving people. You can be tolerated, of course. It's a pluralistic society, but don't say okay, now I'm going to take away the freedom of religion. The Declaration of Independence says you're endowed by your Creator. It doesn't say you're endowed by Washington, D.C. or Fresno or Springfield or Salem or Albany, Augusta. No, that's not the point. Point is, you're endowed by your Creator. That was the pitch he made to the whole world to sell this idea, to get them to understand. Like, why are you writing a Declaration of Independence? Because I want to tell to the world what we're doing and why we're doing it. So he said we're endowed by our Creator. Father. The word father means creator. So anyway, and so why does it have to be God, country, and family? Because look at the Civil War, the one that's still going. Look at the Revolution. You don't think it was brother against brother? You don't think that it was? There's tales in the Civil War of a father shooting at his son or a son shooting at his father. So you can't go, well, I'll never take up arms against my own brother. What if your brother's an enemy of your country? So it doesn't work that way. It's like this. There's conservative congressman, and he's talking about. They're talking about, oh well, if your son or daughter was homosexual, you might change your tune. And guess what? The guy did. He did. He was against, homosexuality, not being having a right to exist or live or thrive, but to run our life with the tails wagging the dog. Your right doesn't take over my right. The Constitution was designed to protect the minorities from the majority. But when the minority takes over and begins to run the life of the majority, then that it's wrong. It's wrong. So they kind of threw it in and say, well, I'll bet if your son or daughter transitioned or they didn't have transitioning then. It was just an alternative lifestyle. Come out of the closet, come out, whatever it was. And sure enough, he did. So what does that tell you? Does it tell you something about the math and logic of our age? Or does it tell me something about that person? Like, George Carlin kind of made fun of the Catholic Church that brought him up. He says, there's people in hell doing time for eating meat on Friday, and then the church gives it away as a prize. Or whoever came in first in the scrap iron or newspaper drive, You can have meat on Friday. It's a game. It's like a game show. It's either a thing or it isn't. So, what you believe about any kind of social tendency or behavior or law, if it doesn't come from a source that can be trusted, from God, from wisdom literature, or from the Constitution that built itself on that, then it can't be trusted. I can't trust you if tomorrow you're going to say something else. Well, now it's my family that was affected by it. That doesn't change the truth. It's either truth or not. So anyway, freedom versus liberty. You were meant to belong. There's a difference between those two words. Liberty, liberty, liberty. It's important. It's important. And one of the original decent members of SCOTUS said that our founding fathers believed that the secret to happiness, or the secret to happiness, was liberty, and the secret to liberty was courage. So like we said before, fight, fight, fight. You're fighting for your birthright. But freedom is different. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of what the left preaches. That liberty is not licentiousness. It's not libertine. But friendship is like, freedom is like friendship. So in other words, liberty means that I've read a massive book about this. It's beautiful, beautiful book, but it lays it all out. The history of those words, liberty and freedom. Why do we need both? Because liberty, all that means is you ain't a slave. They used to give slaves this thing called a liberty cap. I think the statue on top of the Capitol is wearing one. It's or one of our famous animating statues is wearing a liberty cap. They would give it to slaves who either fought for their freedom by being a soldier, or bought it, or saved up enough for it, or whatever they did. So liberty just means you're not a slave. Okay, that's good. Freedom is belonging. That's why we're talking about loneliness. Freedom is belonging. It's like, comes from like the German Freund, and Freund is friend. And you only have to change a couple of letters to get the word friend to be fiend. Tell that to your kids. Remember, and kids, if you're listening, your parents are bringing you up, don't let them down. You have an obligation. That's kind of one of the reasons that the Puritan ethos, the Puritan ethic that formed this country from the Mayflower Compact on, the people that were fleeing, they were asylum seekers. They came here, so they wanted freedom. They wanted liberty, the right to practice, and freedom of religion, not from religion, freedom of religion. So that friendship is belonging. If you have liberty, but you don't have, it's like the French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity. They can say it, but they didn't have fraternity. Fraternity means brotherhood. They didn't have it. They had half of the people, or a small portion of the people, cutting the heads off of the people they didn't like this month. Class warfare, just like Bernie's preaching right now. And Steiner, a billionaire who's running for governor of California as a progressive. I'll get those rich bastards for you. He's a billionaire. So freedom is belonging. And so step 3, we got to finish the Civil War. It never got fixed. It became 1984. 1864 became 1984. The Democrats just kept the Civil War going. We got to fight it. We got to fight it. It's not dead. So like freedom, friendship, the key to loneliness is belonging. You got to know whose you are, and you got to know who you are. If you don't believe in God, if you do, you're His. That's who you belong to. That's the captain of your faith. That's the one that should give you your marching orders every day. But if you don't believe in Him, then you have to believe in the founding fathers, because they set up a separation of church and state, but they put a bunch of obligations on us. And just a brief aside, John Adams, we wouldn't be here without him. He said, if I were a man or a child, or a woman or a girl, and I believe that there's nothing after this life. There's no heaven, no hell, no judgment, no nothing, no rewards, no punishment. No, I mean, I would recommend anybody that thinks like that to take opium. He said the Constitution was created for a moral and religious people. You don't have to be both, but he put the and in there. But a moral and religious people, he said, it is wholly unsuited for governing any other kind of people. And, Bill Maher woke up a little bit about this after he wrote all his atheist antagonistic books and movies, because he talked to Charlie Kirk about it, and Charlie Kirk proved him wrong. So, a problem statement, in engineering, you have a problem statement. Media. One of the biggest problems in loneliness is media. A long, long, long time ago, when it just was invented, T.S. Eliot, the one who said the world's going to end with a bang, not with a whimper. It'll end with a bang or a whimper, whatever. Anyway, not a wimp. If we're wimps, it'll end with a bang and a whimper. So he said the remarkable thing about television is that it permits several million people to laugh at the same joke and still remain lonely. The remarkable thing about television is that it permits several million people to laugh at the same joke and still feel lonely. Yeah, I've looked at these neighborhoods. It's always kind of struck me. We lived in a very family-oriented neighborhood. It was run down. It was older. But it doesn't matter whether you're in a la-di-da, shishi neighborhood. Go get on a mound, or in my case, I got on the neighbor's diving board where you could see the whole place, and you don't see anybody. You don't see anybody in their yard, in their backyard, despite all the investment in swing sets and climbing things and zip lines and everything else that I did for our kids. But you don't see anybody doing anything. Everybody's in their house. So talk about community, but it's not there. So maybe they're watching TV, but he made a great point. Remarkable thing about television is that it permits several million people to laugh at the same joke and still feel lonely. There's a sense of belonging that's missing. In psychology, this guy Abraham Maslow, I think his name was, he had this hierarchy of needs. And, sometimes psychology is right. I think, some people come along later and refute that or poo-poo it at least or whatever. But, he said that, one of the first things in the list of needs, food, water, sleep, shelter. But, right up there was belonging. A family, a community, a country, a world. We're all one people, one family on planet Earth. I don't want to be a citizen of the world. I want to be a part of the family. But if it's part of my family or siblings or in-laws are crazy. You know what the difference between in-laws and outlaws? Outlaws are wanted. Some in-laws are outlaws. It's not good. They're crazy. They're not building your family. They're tearing us apart. Because of why? I don't know. Something they heard 15 minutes ago or were taught in college. Look what COVID did to our community. I saw through COVID the first day when I saw people eager to stand in line and make sure they're 6 feet apart and make sure they have their mask and they've got their card and you got to carry your, can I see your papers? I want to see your papers. And you got to whip out this thing. We had to do it to go to a stupid play in a community and theater in the round. We had to show that we had a COVID shot. Never forget what they did to you. Never forget. I saw this meme the other day. The guy said it was a woman holding a little girl, and the girl says, I don't feel good, and I feel sick, Mommy. And the mom says, let's try fascism. So, when I saw people doing that, my wife and I were walking into a supermarket, and this pasty old bag with a mask or two masks on because her fascist said she had to. And then he went out and did whatever he wanted. But, you know, she starts freaking out. I thought she was having a stroke or a seizure. And I couldn't figure out what. And finally, with her sign language, she was telling me that my wife doesn't have a mask on. I said, "Oh, honey, she's freaking out because you don't have a mask on." And then you get in line and stay 6 feet apart, and all this control. It smacked of the fascism and the socialism of the progressives. Woodrow Wilson, the last time we had a pandemic, 1919. And the willingness of people to go stand in line, take your one package of toilet paper. Why did we hoard toilet paper? Wouldn't you think it would be water or food or something? I guess if you gonna hoard food, you gotta hoard toilet paper. But how crazy was all that crap, supply chain, and people? Oh, they told me to go here. They told me I can't go to work today. They told me I can go to work today. They can't go to a restaurant. Can't go to a funeral. How many people missed weddings, missed their grandparents, being able to say goodbye to them, and all that stuff? So your mental health, and then they come around. They start telling you your mental health is very important. If you watch a game, at least in California, you watch a baseball game or something, on the commercials, they'll say, first five, they do these stupid PSAs for Rob Reiner's taxation charity. First five says that 98% of preschoolers are facing toxic stress. Well, how about if you quit putting it on them? How about if you quit creating the toxic stress? Then we don't have to pay taxes to have you tell us how you think this month it'll fix it. And and you're the one who's destroying our family, our community, our country, our world. Don't come and give me the prescription now for what you think the cause is. So it's tribalism. You belong to America. E pluribus unum. E pluribus unum. Tribalism destroys. It's called balkanization. It comes from the term Balkans, which is the area that Yugoslavia is. Oh, Yugoslavia. Huh. I was playing an old version of Trivial Pursuit with my wife, and it says, "What's the capital of Yugoslavia?" Well, there is no Yugoslavia. When P.J. O'Rourke wrote about it, he called multiculturalism. He called it going from bad to diverse. And he said, "How about Yugoslavia? It was one country, and now it's split. It looks like an org chart or an explosion of a star of all these other countries." I just met a couple from, they were Bosnian. And I had to ask them if that's the same as Serbian language and Serbo-Croatian, blah, 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 blah. So, do you like tribalism? Do you like it? Our country was founded as E pluribus unum. We should say America. That's who you belong to. You belong to America. If you do, if you're an enemy, whether you're in Congress or the White House or just down the street at the local elementary school or the neighbor, then you're not part of America. But we should probably say America is our last name, our family. Or it could be our first name. So let's say an American from Africa instead of African American. We say German American. Maybe we should say an American of German origin. If you're willing to make really long titles for people anyway. Remember that idiot was yelling at Trump, press corps? They tried to take over propaganda. He was yelling at Trump that, it's offensive to people to say anchor baby. Well, that's what they are. I don't care if it's offensive. I mean, he says, "You got a better name?" Yes, I would prefer to call them children born to undocumented guests. And, I'm an undocumented expert. I almost got a sign for the car that said undocumented Border Patrol agent, undocumented ICE agent. Why not? If you can be an undocumented, it's like a burglar is an uninvited guest, and a bank robbery is an unauthorized withdrawal. I mean, you see the silliness of this, the, the silliness of this fascination. The hyphen can either connect a family, like Harriet Beecher Stowe, you know that she's related to the Beechers, or it can divide. I mean, women hyphenate their name to show they're not part of. They're not really his wife or anything. Hillary Rodham Clinton. Who gives a damn if her name was Rodham? Who cares if she came from a bad tree that produced bad fruit? I don't care. I don't know you as Hinky Blinky Dinky. I don't need to know that second name. This is it's a trip they've laid on us. So, we should be one culture, but multi-ethnicities. It's really cool. That's the American dream. That's the United States. When you drive through little Saigon or little Italy or little Koreatown or whatever, we don't say little Mexico, but, we do have communities that are, obviously that type of. So we're one family, one family. We shouldn't be divided in the name of unity. That's what Marxists do. They divide and conquer. We'll take it up again with part 3. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much. Boom. Thank you so much. These microphones are so sensitive if you just breathe on them. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. This ends part 2 of Loneliness Ted. Loneliness Ted. Thank you for listening. This is Jeremiah Gunn Show saying, I hope that you have hope. But you got to have it in the right things, or you don't have a change. And if you don't have a change, you don't have a chance.